In 1945, the war reaches a point where the final decision has not yet been made. In this timeline, the United States chooses not to use atomic weapons. Without nuclear strikes, the war must end through direct invasion. Japan prepares to defend its homeland at all costs. Operation Downfall becomes the final plan to end the Pacific War. Every soldier understands the invasion will demand enormous sacrifice. Japanese commanders commit fully to a strategy of total national defense. Civilians are drawn into the coming battle for survival. American industry accelerates to support an unprecedented invasion. The first battlefield waits in silence, moments before the storm begins. Operation Olympic begins with naval fire meant to soften Japan's coastal defenses. American planners hope overwhelming firepower can reduce the coming slaughter. Japanese fortifications endure beneath layers of earth and reinforced concrete. Thousands of American soldiers move toward hostile shores for the first time. Japan's defenders reveal themselves as the invasion fleet closes in. The first minutes of the landing already cost hundreds of lives. The beaches of Kyushu instantly become killing grounds. Japanese defenders exploit prepared positions to maximize American losses. Medical units struggle as casualties overwhelm the landing zones. Even as the landings begin, suicide attacks are prepared in the skies. Kamikaze attacks strike the American fleet with terrifying precision. Even hardened naval crews are shaken by the scale of suicide assaults. The U.S. Navy fights desperately to keep invasion lanes open. Despite losses at sea, American forces push inland from the beaches. Japanese defenders strike back with determination born of desperation. The invasion devolves into savage infantry combat across southern Kyushu. Prepared fortifications force Americans into brutal clearing tactics. Japan's defenses begin to bend, but do not yet break. Casualty numbers rise far beyond pre-invasion estimates. Within days, Kyushu becomes a battlefield consuming men and material alike. The terrain and weather magnify the brutality of every engagement. Japan trades space for time, inflicting losses wherever possible.
Explicitly states, no voices,
American
no
firepower
dialogue.
compensates for the slow and costly advance. Civilian life collapses as battle lines cut through inhabited land. Fighting continues without pause, eroding strength and morale. Commanders recognize that Kyushu alone cannot end the war. Japanese leadership remains committed to national resistance despite devastation. Preparations began for an even larger assault beyond Kyushu. Attention shifts to the decisive invasion of Japan's main island. The fate of Japan will be decided where population and industry converge. Operation Coronet begins with the focus fixed on Japan's main island. Naval bombardment signals the opening of the final invasion phase. Japan commits its remaining heavy weapons to defend the Tokyo approaches. Tens of thousands of troops move toward the most heavily defended shoreline in Japan. Defensive preparations turn the beaches into lethal funnels. The Honshu landings immediately surpass the brutality of Kyushu. Japanese defenders fight with the knowledge there is nowhere left to retreat. Engineers race to open paths before the assault collapses. Suicide attacks strike again, targeting the vulnerable transport fleet. Losses at sea threaten the fragile logistics of the invasion. The invasion pushes rapidly into Japan's industrial and population centers. Urban combat replaces open beaches with claustrophobic killing zones. Japanese defenders transform city streets into layered defensive traps. Combat collapses into brutal encounters measured in meters and seconds. Millions of civilians endure the invasion beneath the fighting. Medical systems strain as casualties pour in from every direction. Even as defenses crumble, Japanese units launch desperate counterblows. American armor becomes essential to break hardened urban resistance. The battle for Honshu escalates into a catastrophe without clear front lines. Japan's leadership confronts the reality that defeat is approaching. When the guns pause, the scale of destruction finally becomes visible. Resistance begins to collapse unevenly across the Tokyo plain. Captured defenders reveal how thin Japan's remaining strength has become. Civilian survival replaces all other priorities as order disintegrates. Humanitarian crisis follows immediately behind military success. Local authorities seek terms before complete annihilation arrives. American forces move to prevent chaos from turning into insurgency. Organize resistance contracts, but does not disappear entirely. Victory advances alongside staggering human losses. The invasion reshapes Japan into a nation of ruins and survivors. The fighting ends unevenly, replaced by a tense and fragile occupation. Japan's armed resistance collapses in controlled but painful surrender. The end of combat brings the reality of defeat into full view. Survival becomes the priority for millions of displaced civilians. The cost of victory is measured in endless rows of graves. Survivors leave Japan, carrying memories that will never fade. The prolonged war allows Soviet influence to expand across Asia. Victory produces new rivalries rather than lasting unity. Reconstruction begins under the shadow of immense national trauma. Silence returns, heavy with the weight of what has been lost. The war's true cost is written across landscapes, not victory statements. Former enemies now lie bound by the same silence. Survival and rebuilding replace ideology in the aftermath of invasion. Occupation authority coexists uneasily with civilian recovery. In this timeline, nuclear weapons exist but remain unused. Science advances, yet its most destructive power goes untested in war. Geography determines who bears the physical scars of war. Survivors carry injuries that will define the post-war generation. Later generations struggle to judge choices made under unimaginable pressure. The war ends without atomic fire, but not without profound devastation. The war's damage reaches far beyond cities and famous battlefields. Defeat reshapes lives long after armies disband. For many Americans, victory arrives quietly and without relief. A new generation grows up surrounded by the consequences of invasion. Grief becomes a shared national experience rather than a private one. The cost of ending the war is carried home as well. Time softens scars, but never erases them completely. Downfall becomes a case study in the price of conventional victory. Geography determines who pays the heaviest price for strategic decisions. The Pacific returns to silence, indifferent to human suffering. History records outcomes, not the agony of choosing them. The weapon that might have ended the war sooner remains untouched. Judgment comes easily in hindsight, but not in the moment of decision. Peace arrives unevenly, shaped by memory and loss. Operation Downfall ends the war, proving that even victory can be tragic.